Again, this is our final segment of Breezin with Bierman. We have Jody Wood, improv actor, coach. He has an interesting project he might be embarking on. It's autism for improv for higher level. I'm autistic right now myself. Higher level autistic kids. It's quite interesting, and I think we might do some improv too. So, what are you looking at doing? What's the synopsis?
Well, I never thought of it. I never ever dawned on me. I've got a student. And his dad approached me because the student has an older brother who is autistic. His dad approached me and said, have you ever thought about doing an improv workshop for autistic students? And I thought, no, I never did. And as a matter of fact, I don't really know that much about autism. I thought it was something like, almost like Down syndrome or something.
Or Rain Man.
Yeah, well, that guy like Rain Man. Now I'm learning more about the spectrum and all these kinds of things. There's somebody on the spectrum that, like him, you can't possibly reach.
Right.
It just wouldn't work.
So we get it.
I'm learning.
He's just a vain actor from L.A. You're not really concerned with those things.
What?
You're just a vain actor from L.A. You're not concerned about these things.
Me?
Yes.
No, I'm not a vain actor from L.A.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I'm a regular guy from New York who happens to be an actor.
Okay, I have to be serious in this because you can use this as a promotional. I'll shut up. Go on.
No, it's okay. It's fun. Improv is fun.
13 minutes.
We already said 13 minutes.
You know, so anyway, I thought, well, let me look into that, and I started learning a little bit more about autism and how I could approach this. What is this?
It's a fun, safe, authentic environment for high-achieving kids with Asperger's to improve their language and confidence.
Anyway, now where was I? Yes. Turns out my sister-in-law has been working with children of special needs for 35 years with Asperger's, autism, all kinds of different things. And I'm also learning that it's all kind of on that spectrum as the OCD and all. Am I boring you that much?
No, I'm just tired. I'm sorry.
She's yawning.
I know. I do so much.
This is very
for her.
interesting. So some kids wouldn't be able to. Some kids wouldn't be able to participate because of their level of autism.
Yeah, because that's what I learned from some.
But for the ones that could participate, it's
yeah.
probably really beneficial.
It's really, and I've seen it so far. Adam went with me the second time, and he filmed it. The feedback was incredible. The kids didn't want to leave. Apparently,
evidence shows that the kids are using it in social situations.
And they're getting to choose different responses that they wouldn't normally choose.
And they're just doing them. They know that it's in them now.
Right. And they feel confident now. And parents are saying that they're articulating much better.
There was one young kid that just said, I just don't want to participate. I said, that's okay. Yeah. It's all right. You go here. He had a book, like a Harry Potter type book, and he sat behind everybody and kind of looking, and finally, and I go over to see him once in a while. I say, hey, how you doing, man? You know, a little fist bump and all that kind of stuff. How's that book? And finally, you could see he was watching. Then he finally, the last 20 minutes of the workshop, he sat with us and participated.
Like he couldn't let it go. He had to come. We ignored him. You commented, but people were having too much fun.
He wanted to absorb it first.
Yeah, and he did it though. And his teacher, and the assistant that was in there, psychologist, was saying, just amazing. I've never seen that behavior from him before. And some of the kids who were a little more severely autistic, at least on that level, were participating. They did the novel game. They were actually listening and participating.
And the teacher was about listening. The teacher was a little shocked.
They were incredibly shocked and just happy.
I wonder, they were happy, the teachers?
They were
shocked, though, too, that these kids were so open. I mean, yeah. And you were saying,
how do you get to integrate this into
he can show you.
autistic schools all over?
That's what I'm working on. Who I should, I'm putting the program together first, so I have something to bring, and I have it pretty much ready. And now it's a matter of finding out who I need to speak to at the various schools and organizations. I've got a real big proponent for a guy that lives out in Colorado now, but he was the former president of Autism Speaks and the Eden School here in Princeton, and he saw what I was doing, and he asked me to send him some clips of the clips that you took. And he said, "This is really great stuff."
It's exciting, and also no one else is really doing it. Maybe a school
there were some
in Indiana.
studies done. Indiana State University did a study on it and all that. And I thought, well, I tell you, I floated to the car. Well, those 2 times that I did the one thing down there. Now I just can't wait to get at it.
Vivian, what's this?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day about using this yes and improv technique as a method of communicating.
Yes, definitely.
Just in a in a personal crisis type of situation. I said, because I was listening to her communications and everything was yes, but,
Yeah.
but. And I said, how about if you try this? And she is a pediatrician, this woman. But it wasn't working with her patients. It was just talking in a personal
Yes,
relationship.
but it's very
that she
easy
has.
to say. It's a
And I
cop-out.
said, how about if you consider this? This is something I learned in my acting class with you. And she said, this is actually something that we use to de-escalate kids when they are acting out in the hospital. So she knows this technique.
But she doesn't use it
It
in
is
her
a
life.
known technique, but she doesn't use it in her life. And apparently the autism people have not integrated it into their autism programs.
Well, that's hopefully going to change.
But isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
I
it really
never,
is.
when I trained in pediatrics, this was not something that we were taught. And I never learned it in psychiatry either. I learned it from you. But somebody else brought it to them.
And Jody even said,
Well, it's been around. I mean, I didn't, I learned it
No,
when
but
I was
I'm just saying where I learned it. Like I haven't, she learned it in pediatrics, but I did, an internship in pediatrics and then I trained as a psychiatrist. I never learned it anywhere else.
You can even use it when you argue with your wife. Like Jody said,
I'm telling you,
argue
it
with
works.
your wife. You bicker with your wife.
Even marriage counselors can use this.
Right.
They should be using it.
It's a productive way to argue.
Do you want to show a little
Yeah.
improv though? We have about 7 minutes. Do you want to show
Yeah.
and let her see how you work with autistic kids? And I won't play an autistic. I'm not trying to be funny.
How would I run the workshop?
Yeah. We start with yes and or whatever.
If
Well, we
we were,
seem to
if
do
we
yes
were a
and
bunch
every
of high
time.
functioning
Okay.
autistic
Yeah.
kids.
We should explain what yes and is.
I will do
we
that.
can
I
show
think we
it.
do that every week.
Yeah.
Yes, and is basically yes. I'm listening, and I'm going to build on your idea. It's a recognition of an idea, even if it's not the greatest idea in the world. It's saying, okay, I acknowledge that idea, and we're going to build on it.
And I might say that
And you're
yes
not throwing
and.
it away. Yes, but is the easiest thing to say. People say no because they can, or they have that power, and it just shuts people down. And I work with companies and all different types of organizations. At all different kinds of levels. Improvisation is just amazing what it can do in every level of life. And when they start with this whole yes and mindset,
I think
the exercise, you say yes and, yes and, yes and, but in the work, like it's in improvisation, where I learned it in improvisational theater, yes and means I'm going to go with whatever you're giving me and I'm going to, build on so we have a scene.
Right.
It's all about the scene. It's not about me in the scene. It's not about you in the scene. And living fully in each moment.
What would you want to try right now?
Moment to moment.
If you're tired of yes and the audience might be tired of yes and. But yes and, we don't know who's always watching every week. They might not be tired, but yes and, what do you want to do?
Well, we could do an exercise. How
Okay.
yes and works.
Okay, I want to do that.
Here's how it works. Let's do it.
I don't start with yes and when I start. The show with Jennifer was quite different.
Yes, and we're expecting something else, but that's why you got to be ready to, hit a curveball.
And then you say yes.
Yes, and that's why I'm looking forward to coming back.
Yes, and I'm really looking forward to being there next time too.
Yes, and I might not be there if she doesn't deliver the goods without a negative thing. I'm sorry.
Yes, and the ratings will go off the roof.
Yes, and I think I might use the yes and game for my next contact visit.
Yes, and maybe if Adam isn't here next time, I'm going to be the host of the show.
Yes, and we have, there's something smells rotten in Denmark. Huh. No.
Yes, and that's a line from Hamlet.
Yes, and Hamlet is something that you know nothing about, right?
Try to avoid asking questions.
Yeah.
Yes, and I read Hamlet in high school, so I guess I do know something about it.
Yes, and my high school reunion's coming up, and I don't plan to go.
Yes, and I think you should go because you could show them how handsome and successful you are.
Yes, and that would mean lots for the great cause that we're trying to discuss about autism and integrating it into kids' lives that have autism.
Yes, and at the high school reunion, you'll be able to identify which of those kids actually had autism.
Yeah, probably didn't even know it.
So that's basically the yes and exercise. When you're building on each other's ideas, what we would really want to get to is, with the yes and exercise, is to build on one idea and make it go somewhere instead of changing the subject a lot.
And in
know what I
final 3
mean?
minutes, what else did you do with those autistic kids?
Well, I did a game called, we did one word story. We did, which is one word at a time where we create a story together.
That was a lot of fun. They were
That was
giggling.
great.
They were
It
giggling.
was great. We did a game called Three-Headed Expert, which graduates you from one-word stories. 3 people that sit there, people with 3 heads, but they're one person, and they answer. They're an expert on something like basket weaving, whatever. And you ask them questions, and they answer it 1 word at a time. So they got to work together, and it's not about trying to be funny. It's not about any of that stuff. What's happening is that they're listening, they're working together, and they got this. It's almost like a well-oiled machine after a while, and these kids really start talking. And the idea is to get them in more confident in social situations. And I learned that as brilliant as a lot of these folks are, their social skills are not good at all, and there's a very high unemployment or underemployment rate with autistic people.
And depression.
And depression, and because they can't. And I thought, well, maybe this can make a difference. They're having fun, and they're also breaking out of a shell, and they're communicating, they're talking to one another, learning techniques so they can carry on a conversation.
And like you said,
It's
talk
not-
about, when you say cliche things like in the moment, even though it's not a cliche, that saying hit home because they really forgot what they were doing. They forgot totally. They just were into what they were
They
doing.
were so into it.
You know what else I wasn't there, but I know that from taking these classes with you, it's very empowering that we get to participate and create and do things. Because in the traditional classroom situation, especially with these kids that are disabled, they're marked disabled. It's like they get a
Absolutely.
stamp on their forehead.
Yep.
And then you have these teachers, which in many cases really see themselves as putting something on these kids to make them better. They're kind of like the do-gooders. And they're very, very controlling. And whenever somebody tells us what to do, the last thing we want to do is what they tell us to do.
Of course.
Whatever the situation is, Like as women,
That's why she
especially.
didn't do her stand-up.
Yeah. I mean, but as soon as somebody says to me, calm down, you're overreacting.
Yeah, that means
The
nothing.
last thing I want to do is calm down
That
and
means
stop
nothing.
overreacting.
It's a
Absolutely.
meaningless
Right,
comment.
so when
yeah.
you have these kids who have a disability and they keep telling them, well, you have a disability, you need to do it this way, you need to come out of your shell, you need to blah, blah, blah.
Ugh.
The last thing they want to do is that, but when you give them a game,
A strategy
and it's-
to
Again.
Fun.
and it's a
there's
strategy
so
that
many
works
of
too.
them.
But also a strategy, it actually works.
Yeah.
But it's
right,
their
but
free
you're not
thought that they get
giving
to
them a
use.
strategy.
That's right.
You're
They
just
discover things
inviting
about
them to
themselves.
play
Right,
a
right.
game that's fun.
Right. Because I've heard all that crap before. We only have 30
Yeah.
seconds.
You're going to have a busy year.
Wrap
I
it
hope
up.
so. I'm
Few
looking
years,
forward to
hopefully.
it.
Yeah,
I'm
and then we
looking
can
forward
franchise it and make millions of dollars. I'm sorry. No, it's
to it. No, listen,
Why
I mean,
not?
I
Everybody
would do it
else,
for free if I
about
could. I
money.
swear
everybody
to
else
God, I would.
franchises everything and makes millions of dollars.
I
So why
would
not?
do it for nothing. If
Well,
I
this
could.
is
May as well do it for a good cause.
Well, I want to thank
feels great.
Vivian, Jennifer Weiss, maybe come back and do some real stand-up. Jody Wood, check out also more about what he wants to do with autism and improv. And this has been the last segment of another exciting, tumultuous, and should I say sometimes confusing, Breezin with Bierman comeback.